My name is Megan Godfrey. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I am the softball account manager at Rapsodo. I'm really excited to be joined by Jennifer Rocha and JT Gasso, as they are two very knowledgeable people on data and how they're using it over at Oklahoma. So Jen, we'll start with you and start on how you're using it with your pitching staff and pitcher progression and everything like that.
I think she's giving me too much credit on being knowledgeable on data and data analytics and all. It's a learning process, I think, but I think where technology is taking our sport and where we're going to be with it is it's going to elevate what we're doing and how we're doing it. So obviously we're big fans of Rapsodo and what they're doing. What we start with, I think we use it really heavy in the fall as we start our practices, and really it just allows me an opportunity to get to know what my pitchers are actually doing. You can see a lot of things, I thought I could see a lot of things as I'm watching pitchers throw and as I'm seeing what they're doing. But when you get to have the technology behind it and the ball tracker and the high camera speeds, it really opens your eyes to how the ball is actually spinning, and how you can really improve what your pitchers are doing as far as breaks and movements and changing speeds. It really just opens your eyes to a lot of things. So what we do once we get on campus is everybody is getting on Rapsodo so that I can really get the truth behind how their pitches are actually breaking and what they're doing. And it really, it's kind of fun taking some of our newer pitchers through the process of really seeing the ball in space and the tilts and all of that stuff that Rapsodo is able to provide. And so we just use it as starting base, and then it just allows me to really try to either leave their pitches alone, or to really try to, it helps me evaluate like how to develop pitches, and what spin direction we want it to go in, whether we're looking for more bite, whether it's down, up, side to side. It really gives immediate feedback. So we'll just set it up in the bullpen with an iPad. We've done it where we've had a TV connected to it, so it's like a big picture and they can see what's happening right away. The video, if you want to put the video piece on there, I think that immediate feedback of a pitcher seeing herself in motion and in space and really how the ball is coming off of her fingers and why she may not be getting as much rise as she wants, as much drop as she wants. It really tells it gives you the full story of how to get there and why. And it's been great for us to develop over time. And the longer we've used it, the more we're able to space out. We try to use it maybe every other week if we can, and sometimes more with certain pitchers if we're really trying to work on tightening up some spin or spin direction, whatever it might be. We'll plug it in as needed, and just really gives us an opportunity to get some work.
And Jen, if you want to talk about kind of pitch progression and rise balls, I know you have a pitcher that you really work with from fall to spring. If you want to go ahead and touch on that.
Yeah, we got one of the transfers we got in last year. This is Hope Troutwine's picture of rise ball up on there. And so what we were seeing when she came in was it was more about the spin direction for her. Always a good rise ball pitcher. Had some, we had to do a good job of just getting some strength on her and really stabilizing a shoulder injury that she was kind of padding with her shoulder. So when we looked at her rise ball spin, and as we were going through with live batting practice, it just wasn't as effective as we were wanting it to be. And so when we were able to see what it was doing on Rapsodo, it was able to go up. And here's what I appreciate about what Rapsodo does. Everybody wants to know, like, well, what number do we need to get to, or what is it that you're looking for? For me with Rapsodo, it's not necessarily like, what number do we need to get to, but it's going to show me what my pitchers are doing right now and how we can get them better. So for me, one pitcher looks completely different on a rise ball than the other, but yet they can both maximize what they do and how they do it. So it's not like if you're at 1,000, you need to get to 2,000. It's what are you doing at 1,000 spins that is good, that can be better. And so it really allows you to shape the pitcher that's in front of you instead of trying to cookie cut her into the pitcher that's next to her. And that's for me where the value of Rapsodo is at. So when you look at, if you can put her on the top are the fall numbers that she was putting out. These are all averages that Rapsodo produces out there. So when you look at that, you can just, I'm not really great at all the technicalities that are in it, but I think I know what I'm seeing as far as when the ball is spinning. So I brought the nifty little tool that Rapsodo allowed me to have. And when you look at the way, you can look at the velocity, the max velocity she was at, and the spins it was getting, and the max amount of spins, all the things, and you look at the vertical break, and so when it's plotted, it's saying like it has negative movement. And I think that's what freaks a lot of people out, is when they see, well, I'm throwing a rise ball, how is it going down? Well, what happens is the ball spins in a direction that has negative, it has arrows that are actually pointing down. Even though I'm trying to throw a rise ball, it's spinning where, you can help me out on that, I just know what I see, but it's spinning to where it's saying it has negative movement. So the machine is reading it as negative, but the ball, it doesn't mean the ball can't carry up still. So there can still be some success that happens there, but if we want to have better movement and hold the plane for a lot longer and allow us to create some deception with hitters and maybe get some more swings and misses, if we can get better backspin. So in the fall, go ahead and spin that again. When it was coming out of her hand, it was spinning a little bit. It came out of her hand like this. The best way for me to do it is just to show you. So it was coming out of her hand. So my hand is still staying underneath it, but the longer I carry it, the more it's now going to start spinning in a negative direction. So it's starting to spin its way down this way through space. So she can still throw it hard enough and has enough spin, a high enough spin rate where it's going to maintain its plane, but it's just not getting it's not going to stay there for as long as we need it to, because it doesn't have the best backspin to get vertical break in a positive direction. So what we figured out was we really had to work hard on holding all those numbers. Just said, hey, get your fingers underneath the ball and really like hold your wrist in a little bit better so you can spin it and create better backspin. So she would do that sometimes, but most of the time she was still creating backspin, but tilting the ball like so, which is relative to the gyro degree. We can go down a lot of rabbit holes here, but her gyro degree did increase, but now she was able to get better vertical movement and keep the ball spinning backwards to hold that plane longer. And it worked better, bottom line. It worked better. So we worked on that all fall. We changed the tilt, changed the direction, and we were able to get some better results with her rise balls we threw through space. So it took a long time to get there, but we finally did it. And the interim, what we didn't realize is we were increasing miles per hour along the way as we did that. And our spin rate, on average, kind of jumped just a little bit, but we were getting positive vertical break on that profile there. So we wouldn't have known that, and I probably would have let her continue to throw the rise ball as she did, because it was really good. But we just made a little half tilt of degree of change, and she was able to sustain a little bit longer in her innings and in her outings.
Thanks, Jen. That's good stuff. JT, we'll go ahead and get started with you. If you kind of want to just talk through how you're working with your offense and using Rapsodo in your everyday life.
Yeah, so it kind of started with me very early on at OU, where everyone has their exit meetings, and you say, kind of just paint a picture of how things went. And so what was happening was, we would say to certain athletes, hey, how'd you think it was? And in my head, I have this idea of what it looks like, what they're able to do, what they can't do. Then the the answer would be conflicting to what I'm saying. So I thought I had a pretty good fall, but I didn't have anything to back it up. I didn't have anything to show them, well, here's what we're seeing. So then we started to really dive into painting a really good picture of what hitters can and what they struggle with, what they can do, what they kind of struggle with. So what we do a lot of times is just test, just flat out like test. We want to see how you hit different speeds, different spins, different locations, so that we can paint a whole picture of what our hitters are going to look like. So one of the things that we're looking at right here is Jocelyn Allo's Rapsodo numbers, and this is based on her exit speeds versus different pitching velocities. So if you're looking at this, each of those horizontal lines are, as they go up, they're getting faster. So at the bottom it's 50, that first line is 50, 55, 60, 65, 70. So what we do is we look and you just say, okay, how are they doing against different pitching velocities? So if you're seeing as the x-axis, or as the dots move to the right, that's how hard they're getting hit. So anything that's past that red dotted line is a hard hit ball. So as we're looking at how hitters are, how they're performing against different things, the way I think about it is these numbers, this data that we are looking at is more of like a engine light. Hey, warning, something could be happening here. Then, like a mechanic would, you look under the hood, you kind of see, what's going on. So the one huge thing, if you're looking at this, is, when you think of Jocelyn and Allo, you can think of, hey, there's really not much that you need to work on. Like, you're in a really good space, right? Which is, for the most part, very true. But she was very driven. Like, if you see anything, like any warning signs, like we want to address it like immediately. We're lucky enough to have a lot of hitters on the team that are kind of built like that too. So what you're seeing is in between the 60, it's kind of in the middle there, but in between the 60 to 55 range, you see a lot of dots to the right of that red line. And this was in season. This was our data in season. So what we're looking for is, if you're looking at describing how people are able to hit it, think of, like, everyone thinks launch angle is like a bad word, but what's funny is every single ball that you hit has a launch angle. So when someone says, hey, hit a line drive, they're telling you to influence your launch angle by keeping it lower. Get under the ball, you're trying to lift it. Hit a ground ball, like you're trying to manipulate your launch angle. So to me, it's kind of funny when someone says launch angle swing, because it's like, well, it can be over the top if you really wanted to manipulate. Anyway, so between 10 and 25 degrees is a line drive. And this is taken from MLB classifications, but when we put our own data, it was pretty spot on with exit speeds and your batting average on different launch angles and whatnot. But anyway, so what we're seeing is that when she hits the ball hard, like at between 60 to 65 degrees, her average launch angle is 18 degrees. And her average exit velocity was at 70. So she's just basically hitting a nuke every time that it's in between that speed. And then you're seeing it's pretty consistent as the speeds are going up. So she's actually getting under the ball a little bit more as the speeds are increasing. So the thing for us is, if we're going to see it in the game, we want to know how do we do against it. So that is, like I said, 50, and sometimes pitching machines get a little finicky, and they'll throw one up to 75, 76, and just I want to see how it goes. But anyway, what we were noticing was, as the pitch speeds were getting slower, so from the 59 to 50, so change-up range, off-speed to change-up range, her launch angles were actually decreasing. So now she went from 18, from 60 to 65, she was at 18, to now from the 50 to 55, she was at 10. But she was still hitting the ball hard, right? So when you're looking at it, like, hey, you're just hitting the ball lower, you're still hitting it hard. The thing is, those lower hit balls were producing outs. So what we were able to do was say, okay, for these, let's see why that's happening. And so we have a video of what the two different things look like. So at the very beginning of the year, this is our first game, and this was on average how she was hitting those slower speeds. So if you look at it like crushed, it's absolutely hammered. But you see top spin on the ball, you see it turning into a single. But what was happening too was if she was out in front and she had the same sort of swing, she was actually hitting it into double plays. She was hitting into ground outs. They were starting to like shift into some different things to get those. So what we worked on was, we looked under the hood and said, okay, and it ended up being more of like a body positioning issue. She wasn't able to hold loads to account for slower speeds. So, as we're working on it, as we're testing it, play the next one. In the span of a month, we were able to turn it into a little bit more of a hold so that she can take the same swing on the same sort of pitches and get a little bit better results. So I say all that just because the data holds not only the players accountable, but it holds us accountable too. Because I think a lot of people in this room, a lot of players, they go through and we're guessing. And for lack of a better term, we're just guessing and saying like, well, do this because Aaron Judge does this, or do this because that's the way so-and-so did it. But what I love about how we're using the data is it's saying, okay, are you okay with this? Is this working? Is this not working? Like this is, it's not, there's no bias to it. So sometimes, like for me, if I'm saying, hey, let's try, X, Y, and Z, let's do this, and it's not working, it's not showing up, then we're like, hey, let's scrap it. We'll do something completely different. So that's just like one easy way that we kind of use it like in season. But I think we get a lot of bang for our buck more in the fall, and just kind of seeing like how hitters progress over the course of a fall. And so what you're actually seeing on this one is a regression. So the player, I don't want to say they got worse, but their performance actually went down from the one on the left is in September, and the one on the right is November. So the very first week that they get on campus, we try and test them to see where they're at. And then over the course of the semester, we train, we do our thing, and then we'll test again at the very end. So what you're seeing over here is just basically think the more dots that you have over to the right of that dotted line, the harder the ball's hit. So what you're seeing on the left is a lot more dots that are to the right of that line, and it's just showing that hey, you're hitting the ball pretty hard. We use 65 for us. It used to be 63. This is actually 63, but we increased it to 65 because what we're seeing with our own data is at 65 miles per hour, like on the exit speed, your chance of getting a hit for us was like at 80%. And then at 63, it was like in the 60, like 50 to 60 range, which I just thought was really good, but we wanted to make it like absolute. So for us, our magic number is 65. If we can hit it at 65, we're pretty much going to get a hit off of that, whether it be a single, double, homer, and then the higher it goes up, then obviously the more chance that we see that we're going to get a hit. But what you're seeing is on the left, more dots kind of close to that green line, and then on the right, you're seeing way more dots to the left, and their best performance was on pitches that were at 55 to 60. And what you're seeing is there's not a lot of dots on there. It's the same number of pitches, but the one on the right, actually, there was a lot more foul balls and swings and misses. So when we're looking at that, and we had a whole lot of other things, like this is just one little piece, but a whole lot of other things pointing to, hey, you actually regressed. And so now, if you know that as a player, it paints a lot better picture of what you need to do moving forward. I think that's for us what we take a lot of pride in is we want you to know exactly what it is that you need to work on, and that there's no guesswork. So that if we are addressing what the real problems are, or painting a really good picture, then your development as an athlete, especially as a hitter, is going to increase a ton. So that's a basic, very single version of how we use data in our cages.
Thanks. I think now we'll talk about how you guys are using data during recruiting and during your camps. If you guys can talk about that.
Yeah, because
I think anytime we can see a Rapsodo profile from a prospect, it's going to help. If nothing else, maybe the comparison isn't the same. It just, again, I'll go back to what I said before. It just gives me an idea of what that pitcher is doing, how the ball is actually moving through space, and then I can in turn decide if I feel like I like what I see on paper, I like the way she's moving through space, what I see with my own eyes, and try to make a connection as to how she would fit into our program and what a development program would look like for her as a prospect. So it really gives us, it just puts things in a better light for us and helps us to make better decisions when we can see those types of comparisons from a pitching standpoint.
I think with us, we like to see what they can do. So exit speeds, usually if hitters can, especially young hitters, can get to this, I guess the magic number would be 70 for them, then you're knowing that they can put a lot of force into it. But the hard thing is understanding that not every 70 is created the same. So if I'm a hitter and I just hit a ball that's 70, well, if you hit it, you can hit a 70 into the ground, it turns into a double play. But if you can make that be a line drive, fly ball range at a 70, that's a tank. So for us, we'll do some on front toss, but I like to see what the data looks like when we get some live pitching or off a machine that's just throwing it 60, very baseline, like 60 miles an hour, or someone that can actually throw it. And so then what we do is, when we give these athletes are looking at their data, they can see, okay, in normal low stress, you can do a lot of damage. You can crush the ball. But when we start, making it more game-like, this is what it actually looks like. So then you can say, why am I not getting my front toss swing off in a game? And what's the difference? Because to us, there should be a difference. You should be able to get that pretty dang close to what it is that you're physically capable of doing. So I think it's just how we use it in recruiting from the position player side is just, like I said, painting a picture of what they can actually do and not just a small little sample of front toss and just use like one metric. Just paint it big, as detailed of a picture as we can.
Perfect. And we just kind of want to open it up for questions that you guys have after hearing what they do at Oklahoma. If you guys have questions or just general questions about Rapsodo.
Okay, so you have that screen up there where the kids regress a little bit, less balls hit on the right, okay? Or front toss, they hit excellent, and then when you put the machine on 60 or whatnot, it's not as good. Okay, that's great. So what do you do? What next?
It's a great question. So that's where we look under the hood and say, why did that happen? And so, when you start probing a little bit, it's, well, I actually spent X amount of hours. For this specific example, I actually spent this amount of hours practicing. Whereas before, I would hit an hour a day after practice. And so now it's like it's very blunt, black and white, like in their face, like this is, what are you gonna do different? So now it might motivate someone, might turn someone off a little bit, but for us as coaches, it gives us the answer to say, hey, this is where it's at. So like in Jocelyn's example, we were able to see, let's just say that those slower speeds that she was facing might be not as good as the other one. So for us, what we do is now we go into a lot of different methods of, all right, let's do your physical screening. Let's see if there's anything in your body that's limiting you from doing this. Let's see on video what your swing looks like. So then you can get into the real like physical aspects of it and like the coaching side instead of just showing. So we don't, what we like to do too is we show it in the background. We're not gonna like just say swing, look, swing, look, swing, look. That ain't it. We try and keep it out of their minds as much as possible. So even like with bat sensors or whatever the case is. So that way when you see it over time, it's showing them what they're more capable of doing and less like what it is on that one single swing. So it's more of like an average. Does that kind of answer it? No.
Actually, no. What
So,
I'm saying is, like, what's the adjustment, or there is no adjustment, just practice more.
I mean, everyone could be a little bit different. So let's say someone's coming back from an injury, right? Or someone we might find some hip mobility issues, or mechanically not being able to stay through it. So I think that's where, for us, the fun is figuring out what is that why. Why is that happening, right? Because it could be one of a million things. They could, for that week, they could have had a bad grade on a test, and so now their nervous system got hit a lot different. They weren't ready for that week than it was. You know, so there's like a lot of probing that kind of goes on in there. That's where we look under the hood and figure out why is that happening. Yeah.
So JT said on Aloe, she was, because the pitches were slower, she was getting out of her loader, with holding her loader long enough in order to deliver the barrel. Anyways, what did you do to help her hold her load longer?
So that's where, for her, it was she just needed to know that, and then we could like do some slow movement style things where we are saying, okay, hold, and then go. Or we could like really just train that. And so for someone that, let's say someone that's a freshman that comes in, and let's say they're doing the same thing. They might not know what it is that they're doing, so then it's a whole different process of, now we're gonna really do some movement prep, or we're gonna get you in with our strength coach, who we're blessed to have a really good strength coach that can help get into some of these positions that now as I'm moving and holding that, it might, okay, I gotta just do that more and more and more. Whereas Jossie, she can just say, okay, I got it, and now, like, we're good. She just needed to train it at that speed a lot different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, the more specific you can get, the better.
Right.
I think that's just the beauty of Rapsodo, and the beauty of coaching is to say, you're doing this, why are you doing it? And every athlete is built different. The way that he might not be able to stay loaded on a changeup is going to be different than me, and I got to figure out as a coach what words am I going to use to change the mechanical flaw there, you know. And I think to your question, sometimes, you know, you have to ask yourself, were you literally trying to make a technical mechanical adjustment, and maybe that was the reason why the exit velocity changed, you know, on a swing. So there's a lot of coaching. Sometimes players translate different. What you say and what they do, sometimes there's a disconnect, and sometimes they locked right in, and other kids like Jocelyn just have a feel, and you all know what the feel is, where they can make it happen. They just need the repetition to do it. And that's the beauty of coaching, is and Rapsodo blended together, or, you know, anything like this where you can go, oh yeah, there is a problem, let's figure it out, and you start like trying to figure out what that is. There's another question.
So for the kid who regrets, could you have eyeballed that yourself, or did you truly need that? Like, I know for me, it's hard to really eyeball like a 61 to 65.
Right. I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't, because, you know, when you have 15 hit, and that was during COVID year, so that was like, we had like 45 hitters, it seemed like, right? But that's what Rapsodo is helping with, is you can look at this and be like, oh, like stuff that just pops out. And so, you know, a lot of it, like we said, is, you know, we start to probe and ask questions, kind of knowing what's happening. And then it's like, well, okay, I haven't done this, I didn't do that. So I feel like sometimes I feel like I can, but then I'm just, you know, it's unbiased, like going, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe it's not hit as hard as I thought, or maybe it you know, the opposite. So I just like that I can get my perspective out, because I feel like as I'm getting older, my eyes are getting they're
Just
like,
getting better.
yeah, they're regressing too. So.
Jen, JT, I want to thank you guys for being with us today. We have a booth downstairs if you guys want to come ask any questions. We're happy to answer anything, and we appreciate you being here.